everyone. Hello. Welcome to episode 2 of my podcast where I explore what is making me pivot from my tech career to a full-time food business owner. And I think my first episode was focused more on the negative things that pushed me to make a change. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about the passion and the inspiration that pulls me towards creating a livelihood around food. And I think some of the thoughts I have are what a new entrepreneur may probably encounter a lot of the times, and a lot of anxiety and worries and stress and the fear of the unknown, which I think is very common in a lot of new business owners, especially when it's really not your domain or something that you've done in the past. And how I'm exploring this new venture is, number one, treating this as venture as a journey and focusing on the feelings and experiences as I go through it instead of thinking of my final goal all the time. That final goal being a restaurant empire, that ultimate destination. So what is it that I'm liking about this journey and the present? Before I answer that, I think it's important to share where my love for food and desire to introduce Bangladeshi food comes from. So I think generally I've always been a foodie, and the country I come from, which is Bangladesh, obviously, all our celebrations all our parties, everything is really all about food. And I'm sure, and I know most cultures around the world are similar, but I'm specifically talking about my upbringing in Bangladesh because I didn't have a lot of different interests and hobbies growing up myself. It's not like in America where the kids are growing up with almost a requirement to have involvement in extracurricular activities like learning how to play an instrument or playing sports. My school did have these opportunities, but I was never really invested in anything. All I did was study to get good grades. I did love listening to music, and I watched a lot of TV, and I read Harry Potter, but that was it. So I also never did much cooking because my mom would obviously take care of all of that. But I would be with her in the kitchen from time to time, and I still have vivid memories of how she would grind her own spices and marinate beef before adding it to caramelized onions, and how meticulous and clean she was while cooking. And I remember going to the fresh markets in Bangladesh with my mother, and they would slaughter the chicken right in front of us before selling it. They would grind whole turmeric and dried chilies for the spices right before we bought it. It can't get any fresher than that. And that is something that has taught me the difference between food that's cooked with freshly ground spices or with fresh meat and produce, and the difference between that and the not so fresh kind. So for my dinner parties or anything I do with food, I try to really carry that forward. I grind my own spices. I toast my own spices before using them as much as I can, as much as time allows with my little small pestle and mortar. And I get my meat from a butcher, not grocery store meat. So I think that makes a huge difference to the taste. And I think that, is just ingrained in me because of how I experienced food growing up. But when I was a child, though, I can't even say I was very in tune with the Bangladeshi food scene or food culture. It was just a big part of my life since birth, and I didn't think twice about it. I was also a very picky eater. I didn't eat a lot of things until I was probably in my 20s when I really started to appreciate what Bangladeshi food is all about, and more about that later. But it's basically the main food language for love in our culture. I meant to say the love language for Bangladeshis is food. See, the proof is in the pudding. So I think that was always there subconsciously. When I moved out of Bangladesh, I was 18. I moved to UK to pursue my undergrad, and I was very close proximity-wise to my mom's sister. My aunt and the Bangladeshi community in London is also huge. So my aunt's also an amazing cook. I really started to explore a lot of different things that I haven't really appreciated when I was in Bangladesh. And one example is this dried fish curry, which we call shutki. And, you make it like super spicy, very umami. I think the closest thing to it is sambal, if you've had it in Malaysian food. It's very pungent. It's a dried fish smell, which is a little stinky. But I think once someone tries it, they just absolutely love it. I served it in one of my dinners and convinced a couple of Bangladeshi people otherwise, because this dish has a stigma because of the smell, even with Bangladeshi people. So I made it palatable enough for them, and it was a huge compliment for me when they shared that it was one of their favorite items on the menu. So I think I just see that as a big win. So yeah, back to my time in London. These were the types of things I learned how to eat more as I moved out of the house, and still wasn't a cook because Bangladeshi food was always available for me through my aunt or some other dinner party that a Bangladeshi was hosting, or even some restaurants, in London are Bangladeshi. So at least once or twice a week, I had Bangladeshi food at my aunt's. And after my undergrad, my parents moved to America because they got their green card. So I got my green card at the same time. And this was 12 years ago, by the way. So after being with them a couple years, I moved to upstate New York in Ithaca for grad school. And this was the first time I didn't have access to a mom or aunt or any sort of restaurant that served Bangladeshi food. So I realized I really needed it in my life, and it was part of my DNA to have it at least once or twice a week. So this is when I started cooking, and I was, in my early 20s back then, and I started with the basics, and I think I was pretty good as soon as I started, if I say so myself, and also because I always looked up a lot of recipes online, talked to my mom, and got those basics from her. So I just wanted to make sure that it tasted like hers. And whenever I achieved that, to me, that was success. But she was never able to tell me the amount of things she would put in. And that's very common with like a lot of moms and aunts around the world and grandmas. Like she'd be very descriptive and say, just put a dash of chili powder or a few pieces of chicken. And when I asked her to clarify or specify, she'd always scoff at me. But this was really good for me because I had to develop an instinct and taste food along the cooking process and adjust. So once I built that basic instinct, I started to explore more and more ingredients and techniques, and also how to replace Bangladeshi ingredients with American ones. For example, we have a lot of fish in our cuisine, so I would ask my mom what she cooks with what we have here to replicate similar textures and flavors. And one side note, we have a national fish called ilish, and that, in my opinion, cannot be substituted because it has a very distinct smell and flavor. You'd be surprised to know it's imported all the way from Bangladesh. And when I cook it, it tastes like it was just caught from a river, thankfully. But yeah, so anyway, back to, my cooking journey. As I hosted more and more parties for people, like casually, compliments from my friends, family members or friends of friends reassured me that it's not just me enjoying my food, it's also that others are enjoying it. Whether it was a ricotta baked sweet I made for my grad school friends called rashmalai, or it's like, a really light, fluffy sweet that's soaked in sweet cream. It's delicious, but so light and nice. Or whether it's my chicken pulao that was enjoyed thoroughly by a bunch of family friends. And getting those compliments on my food just always hit differently. And I wanted to keep chasing that feeling. So when I moved to California 8 years ago, back in 2017, I was disappointed to see the lack of Bangladeshi food options for such a diverse and vibrant place. I live in NorCal, by the way, so all you LA folks, just calm down. I know it's slightly more present there. In London, too, at least there were a couple options for restaurants, although most Bangladeshis would open a restaurant and call it Indian or Pakistani, which was disappointing. I know in New York City, too, there are a lot of options, but in NorCal, there are no Bangladeshi restaurants that are remotely even good, sorry to say. There are a couple of grocery stores and they do catering. So let's say I've tried some of the items and they're really good. One specific one is my Bangla Bazaar in Sunnyvale, and I frequently get my meat and fresh fish from there, as well as other Bangladeshi ingredients. And they make a really good tehari, which is a beef rice dish Unfortunately, it's not like a sit-down restaurant. And that's, again, it made me question, why aren't Bangladeshis doing this more? Like, what's holding us back? Because the food is amazing and it needs its own identity. And the other thing that made me realize why I need to do this is being in the Bay Area, there are a lot of Indians because of tech, obviously. And I constantly get confused as an Indian. So it's kind of a response to my identity crisis. I want to introduce my real identity, my culture, and my country, and what we eat, and what's special about it, what's unique about it. And I remember when I started my dinner club, it was through my alumni network here, Cornell, NorCal, shout out. And I'm on the board, and we're a nonprofit group of Cornell alumni. We're all super enthusiastic about creating unique events, and I thought, why not just do a dinner party at my house, cook a 6-course meal with 2 cocktails. I've cooked for large groups of friends before, so I knew it would be something I could do and hopefully people would love. So when I posted it on the website, the first time I knew we have like 8,500 or so subscribers to that newsletter. So to me, just having it posted on that website was a win for people to at least like be able to read the word Bangladeshi somewhere. That was already a win. And I try to remind myself of these wins that I've been gaining along the way, because my mission is to introduce my country and my people's identity through food. And I'm definitely not there where I'm popular enough to make a significant difference, but these small things keep me going. When I posted the event, though, it was a struggle to get the signups, and I only charged $60 the first time. Now I charge $80, by the way. But I didn't have much confidence, and I was hustling. Even my friends, to get to sign up. So yes, just to get to 12 people to come to my dinner was a huge mountain I had to climb, and I was already starting to feel discouraged. And when I thankfully did get all the slots booked and I did my first dinner party with 6 courses, I wouldn't say it was perfect because I never had individual portions served. I never had a time crunch. These were paying customers, whether they're friends or not. I wanted to respect that. So it wasn't the best representation of me as an organized person, but also food-wise, I don't think it was the best representation, but it's definitely a big checkpoint. And I was definitely exhausted after that first dinner. I was, again, on my feet for probably 48 hours and 2 weeks or more of planning and a month of hustling to find those 12 people. And after the first dinner was over, I sat on the couch and I was talking to my partner and I was pooped, and the next thing I could think of is, when am I going to do the next one? I didn't think I had it in me to be a person who could be on their feet and go through all these physical hurdles, because I've always been a corporate person or just always been an academic and always sitting down, and I haven't really been physically active much, and I'm not a very healthy, regular gym-going person either. It's also a different level of physical and mental stress. You need to be on your feet, like for the dinner parties, for 48 hours. It's definitely worse in the kitchen, in a restaurant kitchen. And I did get sleep in the 48 hours, but it was also limited amounts of sleep. Even waking up for these dinners felt different. It wasn't the same unwillingness I feel for my job, waking up for work. Sometimes I can't sleep before the day of a dinner because I have so much to think about, like how to plate things. And sometimes there's things that I leave to the last minute just because I want to make things as fresh as possible. So there's so much to do on the day of. And in this newsletter, which you'll probably read with this podcast, it's me sharing the activities during the 3 days leading up to the dinner. The last 2 were, 2 weeks and 1 week leading up to the dinner, the planning phase. So the details will be there, but it's definitely a lot that goes on and your mind's racing, but it's just excitement. It's also stress, a lot of anxiety, but it's good stress. And you realize, wow, this is what you're meant to do. And I never felt this way. I've studied so much. I've worked so hard to get where I am. I'm getting goosebumps while I'm talking, by the way. I've felt great in my career so many times. Whenever things went great, I've received awards, I've gotten promotions, and none of that was even close to just doing a simple dinner party and getting a compliment that your food reminds someone of their mom's food. So this recent dinner, when I did a Halloween theme, was an example where I got that compliment, and I was just, wow, beautiful. And I got the compliment on one of these items on the menu that was shredded beef. We call mangshur juri, which is, shredded beef with a lot of different spices and caramelized onions. And it's like juicy, fatty, umami, sweet, all at the same time. Sweetness from the onions. And while the guests were enjoying it, I thought to myself, I can't wait to have some of this myself. And there were thankfully some leftovers, but I didn't have any rice left. So after everyone left, I was like, oh man, I need to eat some of this because I've been craving it the whole time during prep. And after all these hours of cooking, guess what? I cooked more rice. I cooked pilau, and I was thinking again to myself, I would never do this for work. I would never work this hard, and I'm just happy that I realized it at this point. But even honestly, if I realized this 20 years later, I probably would do something about it. So if anyone's listening and if you've never felt this way, but you're kind of jaded, I think there is something out there for you. And I think the cliche thing, saying life is too short makes so much sense to me now. So I would really encourage you to find that for yourself because it has to exist if you're a human being. And I know people have, a lot of obligations like family obligations or societal obligations that prevent them from doing what they really want to do. Like I'm very blessed to not have a lot of obligations and restrictions right now, but I do have a cap to how much I can do and how much I can really let go of my current situation with my job because I'm not a wealthy person. I don't have anyone who can support me financially if I want to pursue my food dream. So I don't have those luxuries, but I also acknowledge I don't have a lot of the restrictions a lot of you may have. Like I don't have kids. So I know I'm just saying it, and a lot of people may be like, well, easy for you to say, but you can always find an excuse not to do something. And what's really the point of life? If you're not really doing what makes you feel alive, what's the point of being alive? So I like to end this podcast on that note. And the next dinner that's coming up on November 14 is going to be Thanksgiving themed, and I'm very, very excited about it. After I moved to America, like I said, 13 years ago, that quickly became my most favorite holiday of the year. And it's literally my birthday this year. It's always the same week of my birthday, and I love that. It's just my favorite week. And I can't wait to cook like fusion dishes that celebrate Thanksgiving, the classics, but with Bangladeshi twists to it. It's going to be a very exciting menu for me to prepare. It definitely was for me to design and plan, so can't wait to make it a reality. If you want to sign up, check out my website. It will be linked on the podcast, on the newsletter. So I hope to see you there. And one of the reasons why I'm doing these dinners is to get feedback on what I could do better, what dishes everyone loves. And obviously the restaurant is going to have the crowd favorites because it needs to be a sustainable business and it needs to make food that everyone loves. It's as simple as that. So I'm a people pleaser when it comes to food, unlike other parts of my life. So definitely look forward to seeing a lot of you folks there when it's a reality. But for now, dinner parties. And the next one after the November 14 one is a holiday themed one on December 6th. So that menu is going to be Christmas holiday theme as well. So that's also going to be fun to design. All these menus will be on my website, so check it out. So yeah, thanks for listening. And I hope you got something out of it and look forward to speaking to a lot of you again.